What would you do when you have this narcissistic nightmare trying to ruin a film?
Are they trying to ruin a film? Rachel Zegler is freaking out after starring in Disney's $300 million Snow White disaster.
The reason we had Rachel Zegler on the docket is she's an asshole.
Having Rachel Zegler on the docket was a mistake. She's an __. She didn't just destroy the film. She mocked love stories, trashed the original, and clashed with her own PR team. Now, after endless backlash and brutal box office numbers, she's reportedly blacklisted across major Hollywood studios.
Because this woman is a pig, and you fired Gina Carano for far less than this nonsense.
From the very start, this film had red flags flapping louder than Disney's PR team in panic mode. You'd think with all their money and experience, they could make a safe bet by reviving a classic fairy tale. But no, they decided to hand the keys to Rachel Zegler and watch the whole thing go up in smoke.
Have they ever thought about maybe like a little bit of vulnerability study, opposition research, that sort of thing before you go and hire some Zoomer who's a lunatic?
Yeah, but they're all lunatic. I mean, how many people in Hollywood, maybe not to this extent.
The buzz before release wasn't normal excitement. It was buzz for all the wrong reasons. Rachel had already made herself the center of controversy before the first teaser even dropped, and not in a good way. Not in an "oh, she's edgy and cool" way. No, in a "why is she still talking and who hired her" kind of way. People were already rolling their eyes when she opened her mouth. By the time the movie actually hit theaters, the damage was done. The audience wasn't just skeptical, they were actively avoiding the film like it was cursed.
And to everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her.
Opening weekend? A complete disaster. The domestic box office pulled in a weak, pitiful, laughable $42.2 million. For Disney, that's like pocket change falling out of Mickey Mouse's pants. Globally, it didn't even crack $100 million. We're talking $86 million worldwide for opening weekend. That is the worst performance ever for any Disney live-action remake.
The other problem is Disney keeps doing this shit.
Yeah.
They don't care how many times they lose money. I mean,
They're going to learn a lesson on this one, though.
I don't think so. I mean, they're projected to lose between $200 and $400 million on this. I mean, they're not going to learn their lesson.
And there have been some bad ones, okay? But this one broke the record in the worst way possible. You know it's bad when your movie does worse than Dumbo. You made Dumbo look like a hit, congrats.
I think it's fair to say that no one can stand the star of this movie.
Of course, Disney and their usual media defenders tried to spin it. Oh, it's just getting started. It'll have legs. Please. This thing had legs like Bambi on ice. No one was fooled. People just didn't show up. The audience wasn't buying what Rachel was selling. And let's be honest, a big part of that was Rachel herself. Her ego alone could have sunk this ship. From fairy tale to full-scale fiasco, all roads lead right back to her. And do you want to see what delusion looks like?
Oh
my God.
And I can only hope.
What does that mean?
That despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
Now let's rewind to casting, because this is where the curse started. Rachel was picked based on her one breakout role in West Side Story. Cool. Good for her. Spielberg liked her. But let's be real, she brought zero charm to Snow White. None. In fact, from the moment her casting was announced, fans were already scratching their heads. Why her? People weren't excited. They were worried.
This is what theaters look like across the world, and it just keeps getting worse. The memes. Let's say that you were in a Hollywood movie, and the trailer for that movie dropped on YouTube, and it instantly became the #1 most downvoted trailer in the history of the platform.
Not because of her background, not because of her talent or lack thereof, but because of her mouth. She made it clear early on that she had no respect for the original story. That's right. She basically trashed the 1937 film before she even filmed a scene. Then Peter Dinklage decided to chime in and call the dwarfs offensive. Instead of telling him to relax and preserving the legacy of some of Disney's most iconic characters, Disney folded like a lawn chair. They scrapped the dwarfs and replaced them with this weird lineup of CGI forest creatures.
Isn't this the one where they actually took the dwarves out of the seven dwarves?
Yes, yep. We have CGI dwarves now.
Okay, yeah, because little people didn't need jobs either.
Yeah,
but it's
Peter Dinklage wanted the whole field to himself. Yep. Went out there and was like,
the ladder down behind
this is insulting.
Yeah, that's really going to connect with audiences. Let's just throw away a key part of the original story because a millionaire actor felt personally offended by characters he doesn't even play anymore. Brilliant move.
It's demeaning for them to have those roles. He acted as a dwarf on like the most popular show on TV for 10 years, made millions of dollars. Now he's like, how dare people hire dwarves to act as dwarfs? It's ridiculous.
And as for Rachel, her behavior behind the scenes wasn't just annoying, it was expensive. She was reportedly so difficult to work with that Disney had to assign her a dedicated media handler, a full-time babysitter. Just imagine that. You're getting paid millions to be the face of a global franchise, and your job includes, please don't speak unless supervised. And she still kept talking.
She continued celebrating herself by posting that she's in the #1 movie in the world, which is a remarkable thing to post when you are the laughingstock of an entire industry. This is what narcissism looks like. Narcissism for 200.
Now let's talk about those interviews because, oh my God, it was a mess. Rachel took every single chance to make herself look like a walking PR disaster. Instead of hyping the film, she used her press time to insult it.
She talked some smack about the original animated classic, calling the prince a stalker and saying that this new Snow White would be very different. Many people interpreted this as, ooh, Disney's gone woke.
She called the original Snow White creepy and outdated. That's right. She dumped on a film that literally saved Disney in 1937. Then she went on to mock the idea of love stories altogether, saying, "We didn't do that this time." Yeah, we noticed. It's not Snow White anymore. It's girl in a dress being angry at the woods.
How it was so outdated and how Rachel Zegler disrespected the original and a classic from Walt Disney, something that completely saved Disney and changed the company and changed animation in general.
And the prince? Oh yeah. She was proud to announce that he'd been replaced with a common criminal. Because clearly, audiences were dying to watch Snow White fall for a petty thief instead of, the actual prince from the original. Imagine marketing a love story with, "Don't worry, the man she likes is literally a criminal." You cannot make this up. It's like they were actively trying to lose money.
Rachel Zegler is a PR nightmare.
But it gets worse. She even said she deserved to be paid for every hour that the movie was streamed online. Like, are you serious? Who even says that? People hadn't even seen the movie yet, and she was already counting their coins. That's not confidence. That's delusion. Fans dragged her for being bratty, entitled, and completely disconnected from the story she was supposed to be promoting. The arrogance was next level. This wasn't just a PR blunder. This was a full-blown meltdown with glitter on it.
The movie was absolutely terrible. It's not the single worst movie I've ever seen, but in every way that the movie differed from the beloved 1937 original.
And let's be clear, people wanted to like this movie. Audiences love Disney nostalgia. All they had to do was not screw it up. But instead, they gave us a lead actress who treated the role like a joke. She couldn't even pretend to care. Her tone in interviews? Smug, dismissive, condescending. It's like she thought she was too good for the movie but still wanted the paycheck. And that combo right there is why it bombed. The audience felt disrespected. The legacy of the original was trashed, and Rachel acted like she was above it all.
This is truly, she has to go. I'm sorry, Disney. She has to go.
So here we are, a remake no one asked for, led by someone no one could root for. It flopped hard. It cost hundreds of millions and left behind a trail of memes, mockery, and empty theaters, all thanks to one actress who couldn't stop roasting the very thing she was paid to sell. Let's talk about a trailer so bad it didn't just underperform, it detonated. When Disney dropped the first trailer for Snow White, it didn't break the internet the way they hoped.
I know some people like this movie. Some people are stupid. Oops! Oops!
No one was crying from joy. No one was screaming with excitement. Instead, people were gagging, and not in the cool, viral way. We're talking pure cringe. It instantly became the most downvoted trailer in YouTube history. This wasn't just disliked, it was aggressively rejected by the very people it was supposed to win over. That's not an oops. That's a digital slap in the face.
Man. Hello, Disney. You're going to have to redo your film again because this woman is a pig and you fired Gina Carano for far less than this nonsense.
And here's the best part. Instead of taking the backlash seriously, Rachel Zegler decided to double down. Because of course she did. She got online, smirking through her posts like she just won an Oscar, acting as if everyone else just didn't get it. No humility. No grace. Just more smug, tone-deaf nonsense. The kind of energy that makes you roll your eyes so hard you see your own spine.
I mean, older movies in the same franchise, the canon story, I guess?
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. I feel like they would have had better control.
And social media? Oh, they did not hold back. Memes started rolling in like a tidal wave. People mocked her every expression, every overly dramatic line delivery, every single second of her performance in that trailer. Her face in those still shots became instant meme material.
This movie was like you took the original Snow White and just put everything through this filter. So from the casting to the class politics, it all was just bad.
By the time the movie was released, it was already dead on arrival. That trailer had completely poisoned the well. No one was curious anymore. No one was hopeful. Everyone was bracing for impact, and what they got was exactly the disaster they expected.
I paid nothing to watch the trailer, but I want my money.
Let's move on to that glorious box office collapse. The opening weekend bombed with a pathetic $42.2 million domestic and $86 million globally, but it got worse. Way worse. By the second weekend, the movie took a nosedive that would make the Titanic jealous, crashing with a brutal 66.4% drop, bringing in just $15.2 million in week 2. That's not just a flop. That's the cinematic equivalent of your date walking out before the appetizers even arrive.
Snow White limps to alarming $42.2 million domestic opening and only $86 million globally. This was the news after the first weekend at the box office.
And if you thought that was the lowest point, hold on to your popcorn, because a modest little indie movie called A Working Man, which had fewer theaters and a fraction of the marketing budget, actually overtook Snow White in its second week. That's right.
Box office upset. Blue-collar drama A Working Man declares victory over Snow White. Yes, Jason Statham, A Working Man, just beat Snow White.
Yes, Jason Statham's A Working Man just beat Snow White, a low-budget drama with no CGI goblins and zero singing birds, beat the living daylights out of Disney's overcooked cash grab. If that doesn't scream humiliation, I don't know what does.
And then we saw a flurry of other things come out. Disney may be trying to throw Rachel Zegler under the bus a little bit. Disney absolutely deserves a lot of the blame, but so does Rachel Zegler. Let's not get it wrong.
People started comparing this whole disaster to the Marvels, which, let's not forget, is another shining star in Disney's growing list of failures. But Snow White might actually be worse. Yes, worse than the Marvels. Think about that. Disney, the empire of animation and magic, is now out here getting beat by background noise. They're not just failing. They're failing loudly.
We've seen the audience scores. One of the worst ratings we've seen in history on IMDb, with Snow White sitting at a 1.5 out of 10. But would it have a good hold at the box office? The media was telling us maybe this can have great legs. People are going to go watch it. We promise. You'll see.
Speaking of Rachel's social media genius, Let's talk about her absolute meltdown on Instagram, one of the most hilariously out-of-touch moments in film history. She posted a video of herself sitting completely alone in a movie theater, not a soul in sight, just her, beaming and laughing, acting like this was some flex. She captioned it like she was proud of it, as if being the only person there meant she had achieved something. Rachel, that's not a vibe. That's a warning sign.
I love her, and her superpower is her heart. It's nothing supernatural. It's something that all of us have. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy Snow White. Thank you, guys.
I'm sorry. That was acting.
Even funnier, she had the audacity to call Snow White the #1 movie in the world in that post. You could almost hear the popcorn machines wheezing in the background. Audiences saw this and didn't react with support. They dragged her hard. People were calling it peak narcissism, and honestly, they weren't wrong. It takes a special kind of delusion to be standing in a ghost town and still think you're throwing a party.
She was also just a spoiled, entitled, narcissistic brat.
She didn't walk anything back. No apology. No, maybe I should have promoted this differently. Just more smug posts, more self-congratulation, more I'm the moment attitude. At this point, the phrase "don't go full Zegler" started floating around online. That's how iconic her crash and burn became. It turned into a warning, a meme, a lesson for future actors. Don't get so high on your own ego that you forget your job is to sell the movie, not destroy it before it even hits theaters.
But I was basically the only person in the theater. Very few people wanted to see this. Even the little kids who like Disney movies, even they don't seem to be turning up in droves for the movie because the movie is really, really bad.
And oh, the rumors. Because when the smoke cleared, reports started flying that Rachel had been quietly dropped from upcoming projects. And not just any projects, major ones. Word is, she was supposed to have a vocal cameo in Toy Story 5, gone. She was allegedly lined up for a lead role in the Pirates of the Caribbean reboot, gone. It's like Disney woke up one morning, took a look at the flaming wreckage of Snow White, and said, yeah, we're good.
There's a reason why the public has shifted. If you can't avoid this movie, you absolutely should because it's absolute trash.
Hollywood doesn't need another uncontrollable diva with a social media problem, and Rachel proved she couldn't even handle basic PR. She was given the keys to the Disney kingdom and, instead of building anything, she drove it straight off a cliff. The roles she lost aren't just a coincidence. They're a message. One that says loud and clear, actions have consequences, and ego has a shelf life. And just when you thought Rachel Zegler couldn't possibly tank this film any harder, she decided to dabble in politics. Because nothing says, I respect my role as a Disney princess, like blowing up your own PR campaign with a hot-button tweet. Right after her casting was announced, Rachel thought it would be the perfect time to hop on Twitter and proudly post Free Palestine.
And people still line up to see her.
Oh my God.
And I can only hope.
What does that mean?
That despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them.
Now, freedom of speech, sure, but timing? Horrific. Because here's the kicker. Her co-star, Gal Gadot, is Israeli. Not just Israeli, but a former IDF soldier. As in military. As in, this tweet wasn't just tone deaf. It was a full symphony of self-destruction.
She's Israeli, and I think served in the IDF.
So, what happens next? Death threats. Not to Rachel, but to Gal Gadot. Yeah, Rachel gets to virtue signal on social media while her co-star takes the hit. The studio went into full freak-out mode. Executives were reportedly running around like cartoon mice, trying to patch a sinking ship.
They flew an executive, one of the producers, out to go visit personally with Rachel Zegler to say, could you please take that down? Because we understand you can have your political views, but those aren't really helpful while you're trying to build an audience for a movie.
They even flew out a top Disney executive, literally put this man on a plane just to beg Rachel, face to face, to delete the tweet. Did she listen? Nope. Of course not. Because Rachel Zegler doesn't follow rules. She breaks them and then acts confused when the castle burns down. They told her, hey Rachel, Maybe just tone it down while we're trying to sell a multi-million-dollar movie. Just for now. And her response? Basically a giant middle finger. She refused to delete the post.
Maybe not, maybe just take the tweet down. And she wouldn't. And then they had to hire a special media consultant for her to follow her around all the time and make sure she didn't continue shitting on Snow White.
It's one thing to have an opinion. It's another to deliberately blow up your own film's global appeal during one of the most politically sensitive moments imaginable. Disney wasn't even mad at her views. They were mad that she was dragging their brand through the mud, one tone-deaf tweet at a time.
Yesterday, admitting it all. The Variety report being like, of course, what would you do when you have this narcissistic nightmare trying to ruin a film that you've put hundreds of millions of dollars into that's employing all these working class people? She refused to keep her fat mouth shut. It was a great...
It got so bad that they had to hire what can only be described as a social media chaperone. Yes, a literal adult was assigned to babysit Rachel's fingers to stop her from tweeting herself out of more jobs. Imagine being such a PR risk that your employer says, "We can't trust you near a phone without supervision." That's not fame. That's a red flag with legs. Insiders started calling her a narcissistic nightmare, which honestly feels like the kindest possible way to describe someone actively torpedoing their own career with the enthusiasm of a cartoon villain. Then came the Variety bombshell. Turns out, Disney had been in damage control mode since the day they cast her. Like, from day one, not week one, not post-trailer. The moment they announced her, they were already cleaning up messes.
Was it Variety? Talking about how they've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now, and how they had her tweet out like a little, "Yay, Snow White, can't wait, so excited, I love to play her."
Variety basically confirmed what we all knew. The studio saw the train coming, and instead of changing tracks, they just hoped for the best. It did not end well, and now the industry is pushing back hard. The same Spielberg who gave Rachel her big break in West Side Story? Yeah, word is he wants nothing to do with her anymore. Can you blame him? You give someone a golden opportunity, and they use it to drag your reputation through every meme page on the internet. Other big names in Hollywood have quietly, and some not so quietly, started blacklisting her. Not because of her politics, but because of her uncontrollable mouth. She's become the kind of actor casting directors avoid like the plague. Is she talented? Maybe. Is she worth the chaos? Absolutely not. Veteran actors and producers are also speaking up, not out of spite, but out of disbelief. These are people who spent decades earning roles, respecting scripts, and understanding the responsibility of representing a major studio.
He has all kinds of problems that could be pinned partly on the producer. Like, the producer did not do a good job. Nobody who produced this movie did a good job.
Watching Rachel Zegler fumble this opportunity is like watching someone drop a diamond down a sewer and then shrug. There's no humility, no gratitude, not even an ounce of self-awareness, just entitlement, chaos, and constant drama. Her career isn't just stalled. It's become a textbook example of what not to do in Hollywood. She is now the walking, talking, meme-generating case study in how to ruin your shot in under 12 months.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business.
You know what? Maybe Disney does. Maybe you're a tool, you're a pawn in this film. You didn't write it. You didn't direct it. You have nothing to do with the creation of Snow White. Right. You should shut up and do the...
This was supposed to be her Cinderella moment. Instead, she turned it into a cautionary tale. What could have been a career-defining performance became a career-destroying one. It's more than just one bad movie. It's the perfect symbol of Disney's recent failures. Tone-deaf casting, political distractions, and an obsession with messaging instead of storytelling. They gave us a princess with a crown made of smugness and a Twitter feed full of PR landmines.
So the movie had all kinds of problems creatively and conceptually, but there's no doubt that she drove the final nail into this movie's coffin. She probably drove the final 2 or 3 nails into the coffin.
Critics have said it loud and clear. This wasn't just a flop because of bad writing or poor visuals. This bombed because the lead actress alienated the audience, disrespected the legacy, and acted like she was doing us all a favor by even showing up. Disney didn't just lose money, they lost trust. They lost credibility. And in a world where studios need audience loyalty more than ever, that kind of loss is worse than any box office stat. Will Rachel Zegler make a comeback? Maybe. Hollywood loves a redemption arc, especially one that comes with tears, a scripted apology, and a role in some indie movie where she plays a sad poet in a rainstorm. But right now, she's toxic. No one's rushing to work with her. No one's betting big on her next move. The damage she's done is historic, not just because of the numbers, but because of how quickly she managed to fall from rising star to massive liability. One thing's for sure, Snow White deserved better. And honestly, so did the audience. Rachel Zegler's fairy tale turned into a full-blown nightmare. Subscribe for more Hollywood meltdowns and epic career crashes.